Good morning, students. Welcome to the yet another virtual classroom. In our lectures, we are discussing it related to the enthalpy changes. Certain terms we have discussed in our last lecture. Today, in this lecture, we are going to study related to the enthalpy of atomization. Right? What is the meaning of it? Enthalpy of atomization means, for an example, if I put it H2, it gets converted into 2H. That means the electrons which are shared between the two hydrogen atoms, they are taken it to an infinite distance, and the molecule is converted into atom. To take these atoms to an infinite distance from one another, it's considered to be as an enthalpy of atomization. So we define it as the amount of energy required to separate molecules into atoms is known as enthalpy of atomization. This particular term, we know it that we also want to say that for this it's always going to be an exothermic. It is exothermic reaction because sorry, not exothermic, it's always going to be an endothermic reaction. Sorry, always the energy will be required. We want to provide the energy to break the bond, so it's always going to be an endothermic reaction. Specifically, diatomic molecule the enthalpy of atomization is also known as bond dissociation enthalpy. For specifically, we told that for diatomic molecules, right? If we are having it as in more than that, polyatomic molecules, we will be using specific word for them as bond dissociation enthalpy only. Particularly for the diatomic compounds, we term it as enthalpy of atomization also, right? Okay, so that means we got it as a now new word, bond dissociation enthalpy. We will try to understand that what is it, why we want to put it for polyatomic molecules as bond dissociation enthalpy only. Why can't we say it as an atomization? We will also understand that bond dissociation enthalpy. Particularly, as an example, if I take it as CH4, it's going to get converted into 4C, C plus 4H, right? Now we are going to convert them into atoms only. During this time what happened? We got it 1 carbon atom, 4 hydrogen atom. But the heat change that we are going to get it's actually calculated as an average energy. The reason is, when we are taking it as an CH4, by breaking it into the first of all, one hydrogen atom is separated from it, Then once it gets separated, the bond energy for this molecule has to be changed, because this is already now the free electron. So force of attraction between the CH in the CH4 and the force of attraction in CH3 molecule has changed. So energy required for this, we will be having it as a different. Here we can say that delta H1 will be greater than delta H2, because it was a stable molecule. From the stable molecule it is converted into an CH3, which becomes an unstable, and from CH3 the energy required to break one more bond has to be changed, right? If I go it further, what will happen? Now it's a CH2 which is going to get converted into CH, and from CH it's going to convert itself into C plus H. So now if I calculate the overall molecule, CH4, it's converted into 4H. So whatever this, we are going to get it, delta H, it's an H1 plus H2 plus H3 plus H4. So when we calculate it, here we are going to write it as delta H. If I want to calculate the energy required for one CH, I am not going to get it as an individual values. These are not possible to be calculated. So what we are going to do it is, we are going to write it as energy for CH bond. We are going to write it as delta H by 4. Right? Straight away we are going to, so this is known as average, and therefore we write it as bond dissociation enthalpy. Right? Because we are not going to get it as the same energy every time. Okay, because of this, when we are going it for the calculations, the enthalpy change, that is delta H is calculated as HR minus HP, enthalpy of reactant minus enthalpy of product. This is what we are going to calculate the, whenever we have been told that calculate the enthalpy change for any given compound, we are going to calculate it on the basis of this formula. In the normal condition we have written it as delta H is equals to HP minus HR. For rest of the components that we have, or the enthalpy change terms that we have studied till now, we were writing it as HP minus HR. Specifically for bond dissociation enthalpy change using when you are calculating it by using bond dissociation and energy, we will be calculating it as HR minus HP. Right? Okay. Now, these were for the covalent compounds. The second term, the next term that we will be discussing it, that is specifically lattice enthalpy. This term is specifically used for those those atoms which are ionically bonded with one another. That means, for example, NaCl, it gets converted into Na plus Cl minus. Now this is ionically bonded compound. So the energy which is used, it's considered to be as an lattice enthalpy. For covalent compounds, we used as bond dissociation enthalpy. For ionic compounds, we used it as lattice enthalpy. So it is defined as, for ionic compounds, energy required to convert compound into its atoms in their gaseous state. The amount of the energy required to convert the compounds into its atoms in their gaseous states. Right? Now why we want to use that word in their gaseous state? That can be understood once we understand the Born-Haber cycle, which help us that why for the ionic compound it is necessary. For that case, first of all I will show you that why we need to understand the Born-Haber cycle. Generally we write it as Na, that is solid, Cl2, it's a gaseous component, it gets converted into 2NaCl, which is in the solid state. Right? Now NaCl is in the solid state. I want to convert it into Na plus Cl minus gaseous component. So at that time what will happen? This is in the solid state. It is necessary to be converted into gaseous form. Then only it is going to be able to. So for that case also we need energy. Right? So that also has to be considered. Right? So that was necessary that to understand the Born-Haber cycle. Right? Let us check how the Born-Haber cycle is being studied. Born-Haber cycles. Right? Now that is specifically for ionic compounds. For covalent compounds we have studied the same concept in the form of Hayes law, where reaction was completed in one step or more than one step, the total heat change remains same, right? But here when we are talking about the Born-Haber cycle, it's specifically for the ionic compounds. Here also, whatever the heat changes they have been within the different steps, it's a total heat change for the formation of the compound, right? So for that case, for example, we are going to take it as an NaCl itself. Now what is it going to show us? In the first step, Na, we are always going to get it in the solid state. From the solid state, it has to be converted into gaseous state. So whatever the heat we are going to change it, it's known as heat of sublimation. Now, heat of sublimation, we know that it's always going to be an endothermic process. The energy will be always required to convert solid into gaseous component. So, heat of sublimation, whatever the heat change we are going to get it, we are going to get it as a positive value. Now, in the second step, what will happen? This Na in the gaseous state has to be ionized into Na plus plus electron. So, here also, heat of ionization. It's also always endothermic. Amount of the energy is required to convert atoms into its ions. So that is also going to be an endothermic process. Now what will happen? We will be having chlorine molecule, which is in the gaseous state, has to be converted into chlorine atom. So here we are going to get it as atomization. Now we studied it in a previous topic also. When it is a diatomic molecule, we can also use the word as dissociation energy also. So in place of atomization, you can say that it's a delta H dissociation also. Right? Now, it's again endothermic process. So its value is going to be positive. In the fourth step, we will have this chlorine molecule, to convert itself into ion. Right? So at that time what will happen? Electron has to be gained. So we consider it as electron gain enthalpy, which is going to be negative. Electron gain enthalpy, energy is always released. So it is going to be negative. Now once it gets converted into ion, we can say that this gaseous component Na plus Cl minus gets converted into NaCl. It's in the condition. Now this is considered to be as an delta H lattice enthalpy, and that is going to be negative, right? So overall the reaction, we can say that Na solid, Cl2, out of which half of it, so that means this energy has to be divided, because we need only one chlorine molecule. This was the energy of two chlorine molecules, so it is been divided into half, gets converted into NaCl, which is considered to be as a delta H formation. So this was the term, that was the previous topic that we discussed, lattice enthalpy. So delta H of formation will become now sum of this plus this divided by 2, sum of this plus the values will be subtracted. So we will be getting it as delta H formation is equals to delta H sublimation, delta H ionization, 1 by 2 delta H atomization minus electron affinity minus lattice energy, right? So this type of sum formula will be used for calculating the sums, and whenever we will be required to calculate the sums, we will have to show all the 5 steps, right? Now in these steps I wrote it specifically for sodium metal. In the exam it can be asked to you for magnesium, MgCl2, right? So what will happen? Mg will get converted into solid to gas, but here 2 electron transfer will be there. Both the chlorines will be required. So here what we divided by 2 won't be required to be divided by 2, because both the chlorine atoms will be utilized, right? So depending upon the formula, depending upon the requirement of the component, these 4 terms, they are not going to change. This term is always going to show you something different, right? So in common, in generalized format, in place of Na, you can write it as metal solid also, right? Anything in common, it's a metal. The same condition can be done, right? So you would have to make a practice of doing this type of questions. Is it? Okay, numericals we will do it later on, one by one. Now these are all considered, whatever the study of the enthalpy changes that we were studying it, these are all considered to be as an applications of the first law of thermodynamics. These were all the applications of the first law of thermodynamics. Now when we are coming to the end of the first law of thermodynamics, we can say that what was the limitation of first law of thermodynamics? Actually, when we started to study first law of thermodynamics, we told that we want to study it because of the 2 reasons, or the 2 specific questions, whether the reaction will be spontaneous or not, and if it is up to what extent. Neither of the answer we are getting it by the help of the applications. We are always getting only heat change. We are not able to say that that reaction will be spontaneous or not. So what will happen? The limitation of the first law, it does not answer any of the questions of thermodynamics. That is, whether reaction is spontaneous or not, and if it is, up to what extent. It does not explain anything related to the either of the question of the thermodynamics. So that is the limitations of the first law. Now because it was a limitation of the first law, it became necessary that we should study the second law. right? We know it that the thermodynamics is having total 4 laws to be studied in it. So now when we are coming across to study the second law of thermodynamics, now what is the second law of thermodynamics is going to be? Second law of thermodynamics is going to be studied for two different terms. The first term that we are going to come across, that is entropy, and the second term that we are going to come across, that is free energy, right? Now both these terms, what does it explains? Second law of thermodynamics for entropy. First of all, we will understand the word. What is entropy? Entropy is termed as disorderness of the system. Entropy means disorderness of the substance, or the other word we can use it as in place of disorderness you can also use the word randomness, right? Randomness of the substance, that is also considered to be as an entropy. Now the words we wrote it, how to explain or how to understand it. So for example, just I am taking it as a square. I am dividing into 4 parts, right? Now you have been told that how many centers are there for it. So what will happen? You will say that, sir, we are having 5 centers. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Right? Now I am having the same size of the square, but this time I am converting into, now size is same. All of them are squares only. But how many centers are there? The number of the centers had been increased. So that means we can say that the randomness of the compound has been increased, right? So whatever the changes has been increased in the compound is considered to be as a disorderness or randomness. A similar type of an example, just as already you are not there in the school, but suppose when you are coming to the school and you have been told that, suppose we are having 20 benches in a classroom and 3 students are there, then per student what is the possibility that they can sit on the bench? We can say that, I can say it as approximately 6 benches or 7 benches are there per student where they can arrange themselves, right? Okay, now in place of that, in place of 3 students, if I am putting it as the 5 students in a classroom, then what will happen? Each student will get only 4 or 5 benches, right? So that means I reduce the probability of sitting on the benches, right? 20 students are there, then we can say that there will be only 1 bench for 1 student, right? So probability has been still reduced. This probability is considered to be as an randomness, right? So on the basis of the randomness of these substances, that is considered to be as an entropy. Okay, this particularly it's been symbolized by S. Entropy is given out with the symbol of S, right? It is also calculated as change in entropy. Absolute value of entropy can be calculated, but it's a theoretical value. Like enthalpy, absolute value cannot be calculated, the term cannot be said like here. Entropy, we can calculate the absolute value, but it's a theoretical. Practically, when we want to calculate, we will always get it as change in entropy. That is calculated as Q reversible by T, where Q reversible means amount of the heat change in the reversible reaction upon temperature of that substance. So whenever we are calculating the entropy, we want to calculate the entropy of system at the same time the entropy of surrounding has to be also calculated, because whatever the heat change we told it, here the what we wrote it at heat change, so that heat change, it's an absorbed or released. surrounding has released, system has absorbed. System has released, surrounding has absorbed. So both these terms has to be studied together, and therefore whenever we are calculating the system, we are going to put it as delta S total system plus surrounding. Both has to be studied at a time, right? Because the temperature of the system and surrounding will be different. Then only heat change will take place. If the temperature between the system and surrounding is same, then heat change won't take place. So it is necessary that there should be a change in temperature. So for this, we got it as delta S total as system plus surrounding. Now, if delta S total it's greater than 0, if I get the answer greater than 0, then we can say that reaction is spontaneous. If it is less than 0, reaction is and if it is equals to 0, reaction is in that we told it that if the temperature is same, energy won't be transferred. So we will consider that reaction is in equilibrium. So see, with the help of the second law, the term entropy, we can say that the reaction is spontaneous or not. But to understand that whether it's in the spontaneous or not, it's necessary that we should be able to, we have to study system and surrounding both at a time, right? So that will be the condition, right? Similarly, there is another term that we are having it as an free energy, but we will discuss it, the second term of free energy, as well as later on the number of the numericals, the whole chapter, the numericals are being waited for it, that we will do it in our next lecture. Thank you.